And the mess was, I think, mostly state related. And then it's like, I have this website that has all this stuff going on the website. It's being pieced together through these modules, and there's click handlers on stuff, and there's a shopping cart icon up here that's full of stuff, and there's like a modal might be open or not, or it might be like the user's logged in or not, and they're logged in and they have like a cart that they've abandoned or something. So there's all these like potential stuff that can happen. So state can not only represent actual content on the page, like there's 6 things here. I'm looking at these 6 things, but I'm looking at them as a logged in user in this weird, and it starts to being like, there's just like a lot happening there. And the hole we were in was like, what is the source of truth of all that state? And it was just like whatever, whenever, wherever. How do we know if somebody's logged in? I don't know. I'll just like query selector the header and find the login button. And if it says sign in, they're not logged in because it still says sign in. And that becomes, this button is like the source of state for something like that. I mean, that would be pretty sloppy. But the people did that kind of thing. And so the source of truth for state ended up a lot of times just being the DOM itself, which is like just gross. And I think people started to kind of rebel against that and be like, let's not do that. Let's have more of like a store of state, like a way to describe what's happening on this page that's just arbitrary. And like, why not use JSON to do that? Because that's a nice place to be. I have key value pairs and I can describe my state that way. And if the state ever changes, I'll have this, I'll write some kind of library that deals with that for me. So I think that's where things like new JavaScript is stepping in, saying you're forced now to have some kind of source of truth state that you manage, and the UI for the page reacts to that. And it's kind of awesome. Like that learning curve for that is fairly steep, I think. But what comes, like if that was the seed that grew it all, it's more than that, because now there's routing and piecing together components and how components talk to each other, and there's more to it than that. But I think that like that ball of state is the seed that makes things like this kind of matter. Cool. And it's not just, I think they're all related. I mean, there's Angular, there's Vue, there's Ember, there's Svelte, there's, I don't know, there's all kinds of them. And they're competing in a good way. They're competing on like, not just feature set, but developer convenience. And I mean, I think Vue has gotten mega popular. I don't think it's like as popular as React yet, but this one like blew up in the last year for sure. It's like 10x'd in popularity. And my guess is that it's just syntax. Vue just like looks good in a code editor. Like the syntax is just nice. And that's the world they're competing against, and it's kind of fast or whatever. So that if a new one came along that looked just as good as Vue, but somehow blew it out of the water performance-wise, then that would be the popular one. And like this world is not shaken out yet entirely, but the idea of like having the DOM managed for you is kind of a foregone conclusion, I think. It goes further than that in a sense, in that ball of state is an important concept, but there's no prescription for it. You can still screw that up in plenty of ways. And there's things like this that like Redux that are specifically only for dealing with state, which are still easy to screw up. But I like to think of it as like a layer of like arbitrary ceremony to changing state. In just React, you can just be like set state, and there's a little bit of ceremony to it. But you can just kind of do it from anywhere. And the way Redux works is like, no, you can't just change state anywhere. You have to dispatch this action that like makes its way up to the state store, and then it's been dispatched, and thus this like holy state of state has changed, and anything that needs to react to that kind of trickles down. And it's a pain in the ass. Like I really dislike working in Redux, and really like the result of it being implemented, so that like nobody in this entire application, nobody can touch the state unless you've gone through that, you've lit the candle and you've prayed and you've done all the ceremony to change state, is then you can write nice little tests for it and stuff, and it feels like nothing can go wrong in this application. Nobody was allowed to touch anything unless they went through the ceremony. They did the ceremony, and now state is allowed to change, and it just kind of like feels good when it's done. And that seems new to me, like as a, I don't know, kind of old school dev, that this was an uncomfortable transition that is not only just now starting to feel good to me as like a way to build an application in a way.